So how many people have heard of astrology? Well, today we're going to talk about Vedic astrology and what it teaches you about human nature. And when you think of astrology, because you're Americans, mainly, when you think of astrology, basically you think of paperback books at best. Maybe some glamour magazines, you know, the National Enquirer probably, maybe your horoscope for today. In India, when you say astrology, it's not from paperback books, it's from scriptures. In India we have books like Brihat Prashara Horashastra or Garga Samhita. You know, Garga was Krishna's personal astrologer. When Krishna was born, Garga came and did Krishna's horoscope. As a matter of fact, in India, the astrology is so much a part of the religion and the culture that it's inseparable. By mistake, my wife and I today were down in Miramar, needing to waste time. So we wound up at the Sri Mandir. I don't know if anyone knows the Sri Mandir. What was going on? Navagraha Homa, the sacrifice to the 9 planets, because there was a newborn baby, and the family wanted to make sure that there was no ill luck for the child. It's just such a part of Hinduism. It's such a part of Indian culture. It's not thought of as a joke whatsoever. It's thought of as a part of the scriptures. As a matter of fact, it's called Jyotish, and or the eye, sort of the eye that you can see through the Vedas with. Oh, and this particular style of astrology, Indian Hindu astrology, is called Vedic astrology. It's the oldest form of astrology that we have today. There's probably maybe older forms, but they're not still around today. They're extinct. So Vedic astrology, at the very least, is the oldest form of astrology that's not gone extinct. It's still practiced in a form which is recognizably original. In fact, does anybody know what the oldest book is? The Rig Veda. The nakshatra of Vedic astrology is described in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest written work of humankind. So we're not going to really be doing the 17 magazine astrology tonight. We're talking about spiritual concepts through the vehicles of the astrological stuff. Now, another thing which usually comes to mind when you think of astrology is destiny or fate. So we have to say something about that first. In Sanskrit, of course they don't have a word planets. Planets is an English word. It comes from Greek. In India or in Sanskrit, planets are called?
Loka.
No. Lokas mean like locations. But planets are called grahas. Grahas. Do you know what it means? To grasp. The English word grasp, or any word that's like, hey Damien, that's my son. Any word that's like grasp, greed, grip, it's all from grah. Graha is the Sanskrit word for planet. People think that means that the planets grab you. But this cannot possibly be true. The planets cannot hold you or grab you. And if you were here last week, you would know why. Why? Anybody want to say why? Yes, you were. Who is responsible for your actions?
Ourselves.
If you are not responsible for your actions, yet you get a reaction, that's whoever is giving you the reaction is to blame. You know what I mean? So you are responsible for your actions, not some planets. This is an important concept of Vedic astrology. What are the planets grabbing? What are they grasping? They are watching your karma. They are watching your decisions and your actions, and they're holding on to the results of them. And they hold them, different planets hold different types, we'll go over what it is. They hold on to them. Why do they have to hold them?
The next life.
Why the next life?
Make you a better person.
Why not make me a better person right away?
There's not enough time.
There's plenty of, okay, let's say there's plenty of time.
Because you have to make your own choices.
Well, I just made my own choice. Let's say I made a choice to suddenly stand up and say, hallelujah, or something really weird. What would happen? there would be some reaction, right? Some instant reaction. So why doesn't that work that way with bigger karmas? Why isn't it?
They have to accommodate it so only you
Oh,
get
beautiful. That is the right answer. Because it's really too complex. How many people are in this room? 50? I always overshoot numbers. I say 50 people are in this room. Just in this room, there's 50 people. There's 50 different karmic streams flowing at the same time in this one spot. So things take a long time to get the right moment, or muhurta, which is another concept of Vedic astrology. Things take a while to get the right moment at which the karma can be actually given to you in a way that doesn't disturb the flow of karma of the people around you. So that's why planets have to be graha, and they have to hold on to your destiny. Destiny, remember, Prabhupada said, our teacher Prabhupada said, destiny is something like flying on a plane. Basically, we're going to get on a plane and go to Japan. We're going to go wind up in Japan. No matter if I sit on my head, or if I do cartwheels down the aisle, or if I sleep the whole way there, I'm going to wind up in Japan. But I do have some freedom of choice within the plane. And in fact, if I stand up in the plane and go, Allahu Akbar, I'll probably, maybe even not even end up in Japan. So you have some free choice, and it does have bearing on you, but at the same time, you have some destiny pushing you as a result of your past action. Okay? I think that's a sufficient background. So now let's start actually dealing with some of the astrological symbols. And I want to give you a disclaimer. This is scratching the surface, really scratching the surface, just to give you a basic idea of like the very, very primary basic stuff. This stuff is very complicated. The people who are called Jyotishis, they're like living computers with intuition. They're like living psychic computers, the people who do astrology really effectively. And they're also blessed by God, and they're blessed by Ganesh, who is the god of astrology, and they're blessed by Shiva, and they're blessed by Krishna, especially if they're a Krishna devotee. Krishna, and we could talk about all Vishnu avatars, how they manifest astrologically, blah, blah. But let's get down to business. I want to talk to you about the planets, because those are the main things. In astrology, you probably think, oh, I'm a Gemini. No, I'm a Pisces, blah, blah. In the West, we think a lot in terms of signs. Signs are actually not active principles in astrology, Western or Eastern. Signs are passive principles. Do you know what I mean to be a passive principle? This room is a passive principle. We people in this room are active principles. This room doesn't do anything, but it facilitates an environment for us to do stuff. Right, so this room is like a sign, and we're like planets. The signs don't do anything, but the planets are the actors in astrology. And when they're in a certain sign, like when I'm in this room, I act very nice and refined. But let's say if I'm in a boxing ring, I wouldn't last very long, but I would have a whole different set of behaviors based on the nature of that room. So different signs bring out different natures, but they're not active principles. So really, all this stuff based on what sign you are, blah, 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 it's extremely superficial and perverted astrology. It basically has zero value. That's not to say that astrology has zero value. Astrology has tremendous value. But what we come to know of astrology today, in the West particularly, is basically roulette, if it gets right or not. So, let's talk about the planets, because the planets are the active principles. They're the actors, and they're the ones that are actually holding your karma. They've looked at you. They've been, why are they watching you? What if I hide? What if I dig a house underground? Can I get away with things so the planets can't see me? Does anybody know the scientific idea of why planets form? Any Carl Sagans in the audience? You know, there was a big pile of dust in space, and it was swirling around. And in the middle, the sun ignited. And when the sun ignited, other spots were swirling as well. And those swirling spots became the different planets. This is described in Rig Veda. The process of the sun igniting in the middle of swirling matter is described in this most ancient Hindu Vedic book. And the planets forming in these swirling areas. Why are they swirling? Anybody know about yoga? Anybody like yoga here? You know chakras? You know what chakras are? Do they swirl too? A chakra is a wheel. It's in your body in 7 different places. It spins. It spins and gives you energy. You have chakras in 7 different important spots. Right now I'm using this one, which is Mercury. So the planets are the chakras inside of you. And what you learn about planets